Hello class. As we enter week 3 of our really short semester, we're already a quarter of a way through. Looking at week 3 in Canvas, I'm going to take a look at our overview, and we're going to be looking at problem solving. In chapter 1 or unit 1, we were looking at how to identify a problem and kind of think about the different components of a problem, how we might break it up into something that's a little bit more solvable. And in this unit, we'll continue on. We're going to be looking at the objectives 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So if you would move to those in your problem-solving decision-making book, okay, I'll take a quick look at what we've got going on there. Our objectives here are to start gathering and analyzing data, looking at different alternatives and evaluating the options, implementing some of our alternatives as solutions, monitoring the effectiveness of those solutions, and verifying that they are indeed solving the problem they were supposed to solve. And we'll also be thinking a little bit about some ethics involved in problem solving. I'm going to go ahead and download the PowerPoint. And open it. Now, in week 2, we really were taking a look at our first couple of objectives for this unit. So let's kind of think about those as we go through. As we look at objective 10, we're thinking about developing alternatives, solving the problems, evaluating solutions. Before we can really solve a problem, we need to gather some data and analyze it. We want to make sure that our recommendations are based on sound information. We don't want to just be shooting in the dark and thinking, well, we'll try this, we'll try that. That's not a good way to be a problem solver. Now, to systematically gather and analyze the data related to your problem, you need to start by identifying your goal and looking for information related to it. We were working on that Excel budget spreadsheet. That is one way for you to think about how to gather and analyze data. Sometimes with our own personal budgets, we think things are out of control, and the only reason they're out of control is because we haven't gathered the data, analyze how we're spending our money, and maybe we can fix it. Maybe we can't. Maybe the answer is that we need a little bit more money sometimes, huh? But as we're gathering our data, we want to be sure we define our needs. Don't overestimate what we know about the problem. Sometimes we can think that we know quite a bit more than we actually do. We want to make sure that in addition to the data, we document the source of the data. And we're going to look at some existing information first. We don't want to be making projections or observations that aren't actual existing data facts before we analyze that existing data. And we want to rely on people. This can be hard because sometimes people can be hard to reach or hard to get to respond to you, but they're important. We also want to consider interrelationships. It's connected to the same problem, make sure it's connected, see how it's connected, what if it's not. It might be that it seems to be a symptom of your problem, but it may actually not be. It might be completely unrelated. Now in your textbook they have some graphics here of how you might want to view data in different ways. Be sure to look at Sam at the always available assignments. In the Excel assignments, you should see some information about how to create graphs and charts. And using visuals like this is just such an awesome way for you to present your information to somebody else. It's always going to have a lot more meaning than if it's just words and numbers. So do take a look at that if it's not something you're familiar with. Now, after we've been looking at our data, we might be able to start developing some alternatives. As we develop alternatives, we're going to be trying to be as creative as we can. If you've heard that old saying, think outside the box. We don't want to just be coming up with solutions to the problem that are the same old solutions that we've always had before. So out of the box, creativity is key. Brainstorm ideas. Get a whiteboard, write things down, share your ideas with other people. Make sure that you're collaborating so that you can be working together on your advice. And I wanted you guys to do that when you're working with the plane wreck problem. This isn't a problem that necessarily has a right or wrong answer. When I grade that quiz that you guys will be taking about which items are the most important to keep after the plane wreck, I won't keep your score that you get in Canvas because that's not a hard and fast quiz. I'll grade you and up your score because I see the collaboration that took effect, and I know that you guys were thinking about what items you needed to keep or what were the most important things after a plane crash. I definitely wouldn't have thought of some of the things in the way that the solution did. So brainstorm ideas. Ask other people. Sometimes I'm amazed at what other people can think. I thought I had it all covered. Ask others for advice along those same lines. I know when I finished you guys' Canvas course, I was so happy to have it done. You know that from our 10-word assignment. And I spent quite a bit of spring break on it. So I gotta say, I wasn't really in a mood to ask others for advice. Sometimes we need to really push ourselves to be open to advice from others because it's very, very important. And if we've worked really hard on something, on developing these alternatives or brainstorming our ideas, we may be a little bit more closed off to advice than we should be. Another thing that you can do is develop a mind map. That's where we have our problem in the middle and we have some ideas shooting out from that. Here's a brainstorming grid. Here's our mind map. Problem in the middle, bubble thoughts of ideas coming out from that. Really helpful way for us to gather all our thoughts, keep everything together. Next, we're going to evaluate some options. We want to analyze trade-offs. You know, everything's not just straight this or that. Sometimes we have things that we have to take into consideration. We want to make sure we're developing a good solution by evaluating, modifying, and improving on our ideas. Assess each alternative carefully and use objective criteria to avoid making snap decisions. So, in evaluating the options, we want to choose an evaluation method. Are you going to keep track of the number of clients that have requested a flight from our travel agency? Are you going to keep track of the number of problems that the implementation team has encountered as they move their system to production? What kind of things are you going to keep track of? These all have to do with selecting the criteria. What kind of weight is the different criteria going to be given? You're going to rate your alternatives, and finally, making a decision. As you implement a solution, you're going to be moving from planning to implementation, and this is a significant milestone. You might have a kickoff celebration. You might want to do some great things as you move from planning to implementation. Now, during implementation, you're taking all of these decisions, ideas, and things and putting them into practice. So you want to communicate. It's really important that you keep people on track and let them know what's going on. We want to act decisively rather than planning endlessly. This is the time where you say, nope, let's make a decision and run with it, and try to keep George from going on and on and on forever about different ideas, because we're past that point. When we're implementing a solution, we need to make sure that our problem owner has given approval. We're going to develop our actual action plan, notify the stakeholders. Again, communication is key. We're going to be anticipating some opposition. People can be reluctant to change. And then we're going to take action. Now, as we begin implementing, we're going to monitor and manage our solution. We've done some work. We've put it all into action. How can we tell if things are working? When we are talking about solving a problem, we're looking at some related choices. We need others to help. We need the managers and coworkers and stakeholders to understand what's happening. They're going to expect us to deal professionally and completely with interruptions and delays and things that pop up. And we need to be planning for that. We need to identify trouble as quickly as we can so we can minimize disruptions and problems. So for monitoring and managing our solution, we're going to identify key variables to monitor, select an appropriate level of monitoring, and involve others with this process. We're going to be persistent. We don't want people to think we've just let them in the lurch, and we're going to try to make corrections promptly. Different levels of monitoring can be really important. If we're monitoring too closely, we can make people feel trapped or like they're not trusted to put into their part of the solution. We want to make sure we're doing some sort of regular monitoring, and then we also could do occasional monitoring. And this is just going to depend on what state we are in our solution and how things are looking. Now, as we have moved on from our problem-solving stage, we're going to verify that our solution was indeed beneficial. How do you define success? Did it work? We want to make sure that we expect surprises. Some people may not think success is the same as what we think. We're going to stay involved with this project. We're going to make necessary corrections, and we're going to ask ourselves and others, how well is this working? Were our objectives realistic? And what's not working? Now, as we move into this verification solution process, there are some things we need to be aware of. We want to make sure we define success and test our solution so that we can avoid the problem in the future. We want to learn from the process. It'd be nice to have some credit for our success. As our text says, your abilities to solve problems and make decisions are among your most valuable professional skills. So it can be hard, but we do want to make sure we're taking credit. Now, in the next objective, this is objective 15. Let's see, we were supposed to do 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so we're almost there. We want to be thinking about some adaptive techniques. What's adaptive? Adaptive is where we can adapt to change quickly, or we are not stuck, with one specific mindset, when we're open to different ideas. So many groups use adaptive techniques to solve problems. So this is a different alternative for us than the kind of quantitative alternative that was just presented. Using adaptive techniques to problem solve, we're going to use a combination of our personal intuition, our logic, and common sense. And so these are less precise than traditional problem solving methods, but they're appropriate in many, many situations. Now, if we are thinking about using adaptive techniques, some do's and don'ts, we want to make sure that we're careful to consider when we use these techniques. Sometimes we just have to use these if we have a limited amount of time to work. We don't really need to do an exhaustive analysis. Sometimes we don't have a lot of data available. We want to make sure that when we're using these adaptive techniques, we are managing by exception. This might be appropriate. So concentrate on the most important issues and address symptoms when they rise. Stagger your decisions. Do some step-by-step deciding. Stagger them. Hedge your bets. Make sure that you have a plan B, maybe a plan C, but definitely a plan B. People like being offered an alternative if something is not working out properly. And if you're having trouble, you might just have to delay or defer the solution. Now, there are some times that it's appropriate to use these adaptive techniques again. Risks are minimal. You don't really need an exhaustive analysis. You have a limited amount of time. The solution is reversible. Lastly, as we think about solving problems, we want to make sure that all of the solutions we develop are ethical. Ethics are standards of behavior that direct how people should act. When we're working in the computer field or any decision-making field, we want to make sure that we're using ethics in making our decision. We want to make sure we choose between what's right and wrong. And when we apply this to problem solving, ethical behavior leads us to appropriate decisions, not necessarily the best ones. We want to always consider situations from an ethical as well as a practical point of view. When we're talking about problem solving in our specific problem, we want to identify the ethical issues involved. We may not even be aware there are any. For example, windmills are great, but they can be a real problem to the bird populations in the area. This is an ethical issue that has to do with placing windmills in different areas. Along those lines, we want to compare the costs and benefits. Consider other people. We want to make sure we're serving the broad interests and be true to ourselves. Now, this is where we're going to stop for this time. I'm going to go back to Canvas and take a look. That finishes up the PowerPoint that we needed for this week. And again, you will need the same unit for next week. When I click Next, there's the data files for all of the problem-solving decision-making textbook for this unit in case you need them. I just think I clicked on my downloads. How did I do that? I was just too far. Sometimes when you're making a video, you're not even sure that you clicked on something. And then we have a discussion board. This discussion board is about self-driving cars. So there are a couple of videos. The video that explains concepts about self-driving cars, and then one that talks about some ethical concerns related to self-driving cars. There are a few questions for you in the discussion board. You guys have been just doing such a great job on the discussions. They've been super interesting, so I really look forward to your thoughts on this topic. Next, in the week, we have another TED video, and this one you don't need to work with the group. You're just going to watch the video, and this video introduces some different factors and shows you a way to understand some organizations. You are going to use Excel to create a small factorization chart, and there should be lots of resources here available for you. As you look at this, be sure that when you're searching Google, because you need to do a little research to solve this problem, don't use these VB programs that you find because they're pretty messy. It's not going to be that hard. You don't need to go to that much trouble. So it will actually not be too bad at all. Next, do let me know though if you're having trouble. The next item is a SAM project. So it's going to be in Excel. And if you want to do that project before you do the previous one, that's fine. That's up to you if you want to get some practice. And remember, of course, you can go to SAM and use the always available assignments if you need some tutoring in Excel. Just let me know. I'm going to click Next through that. Just let me know, I guess, if the SAM tutoring is not being beneficial or if you need some additional information. Okay, the big assignment for week 3 is going to be problem solving from your case study PDF ebook that was supplied to you. I've included it here so you don't need to worry about going back and finding it. I apologize that I'm looking at instructor view. I'm making this video while everything's locked and I don't want to make a mess of everybody by unlocking it early. In this case study, you're going to look at the information presented about the spring break trip. You're going to set up a trip for you and 4 friends. You have each decided you can afford to spend $750. That should be a pretty good trip. It really should. then you want to go on to a beach or on a cruise. It's pretty much what everybody's thinking. You're going to record this presentation as a movie for submission. Don't be afraid, it's not going to be that bad. If you use PowerPoint, you can just record your words along with the presentation, and PowerPoint will do it all for you. So all you need is a mic. You don't need any sort of fancy equipment or anything. I promise it's not that traumatic. Now, one thing, when I did it, it is kind of time consuming for PowerPoint to save your movie. So be prepared for that your computer could be busy for a little while you save that PowerPoint movie, and then you're going to upload that to me. Again, if you have questions, please email. This assignment can be somewhat intimidating. Do not be intimidated. You guys are so much capable of doing this. So you're going to create a PowerPoint presentation that's going to explain where you're going to go on your trip and how much it's going to cost. As the trip planner, you're going to record this presentation, and that's what you're going to upload as your assignment. This GFC Learn Free link tells you exactly how to do that with PowerPoint. That's what I used because I had never done that with a PowerPoint either. Now, this is a big assignment. Besides the video, you need a brochure in Word, printed to a saved PDF document so that I can see it two-sided. Now, if you're at home or at school and you have accessibility to a printer, I strongly recommend you try printing out your brochure on both sides so that you can see what that's like physically. It can be kind of challenging to get your printer so that you know if you flip it over one way, you know it's going to be upside down or right side up, and different printers do things in different ways. So do try that. So, you could also use Microsoft Sway, but you'll have to use Microsoft Video or Screencastify to record it. Prezi, again, you'd have to use some other recording facility, or Adobe Spark. Yeah, it looks really cool, but we're kind of Microsoft focused here in our class. So that's up to you. Again, please do not be intimidated by this assignment. Please reach out to me and let me know if you have issues. I didn't make it a group assignment because I knew that it would be difficult to do on your own, and I didn't want to add complexity to it. But you're welcome to reach out to the people that you've been talking to so far in class for advice. I've turned on the chat in our class. You guys can talk to each other a little bit about what you're thinking. Think about this as fun because it's super fun to plan a trip. You can get on Kayak or whatever website you like to use to get hotel rooms and go down south. I recommend Waveland, Mississippi because it's right on the beach and it's cheap as can be. Now the thing about Waveland is it's got shallow water, so you might want a deeper beach. But if you start going to some place like Padre Island or some of the other really well-known tourist destinations, your $750 each might be a little shy of what you need. Now, that's our summary for the week. As all of our weeks are, it's a big one because we're fitting 2 weeks worth of material into our 1 week. Please let me know again if you're having any problems. We've got quite a bit going on in our week here. Now, as you notice, your spring break trip presentation isn't due this week. So all of your assignments will be due April 11th. The spring break trip presentation is due April 18th. So you have a couple of weeks to work on that one. And as I mentioned, it is a little bit more involved than some of the other assignments. I really think that you'll have a fun time with it, though. That should take us to the end of week 3. Yep, that brings me right into week 4. So if you click next like that while you're at Canvas, you can just step through all of the different assignments, or of course you can use this modules page and make sure that you have everything. Now, at this point, I'm not going to make copies of either of the textbooks. I'm assuming that everybody has been able to get copies of their books. Please let me know if you haven't, and again, if you have any problems or questions. Thank you so much for your hard work. I'll look forward to hearing